The sun had barely begun its descent behind the vast Los Angeles skyline when the chaos at LAX International Airport erupted. Gate 47 was buzzing with the usual mix of weary travelers, last-minute runners, and airport personnel ensuring everything ran smoothly. Among them was Kendrick Lamar, dressed in a casual hoodie, joggers, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His signature braids were tucked neatly under the cap, making him almost unrecognizable. Kendrick had chosen to fly commercial for the first time in years, wanting to avoid the press and the entourage that came with his usual private jet lifestyle. He just wanted to be a regular guy for a moment. No security, no flashing cameras, just Kendrick, a man traveling from LA to Atlanta for a personal retreat. But as fate would have it, his anonymity became his downfall. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." A TSA officer, a bulky man named Officer Reynolds, said with a firm voice. Kendrick looked up, confused. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice calm but puzzled. "Sir, we have reason to believe you are loitering and causing suspicion near the first-class lounge. We need to check your credentials," the officer replied. Kendrick chuckled, shaking his head. "I literally just checked in. What's the issue?" But before he could explain, 2 more security officers surrounded him. To the airport staff, he looked like just another young black man, maybe even a troublemaker. "Sir, I need to see some ID," the officer repeated, his tone now carrying a slight edge. The rapper sighed, reaching for his pocket to retrieve his ID when a staff member from the airline stepped in. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, looking at the commotion. "He doesn't belong here," Reynolds said, his gaze unwavering. Kendrick gritted his teeth but remained calm. "I have a first-class ticket," Kendrick said, pulling out his boarding pass along with his ID. The staff member took it, barely glancing at the name before shaking her head. "Sir, this isn't valid. We need to escort you out of the terminal." Despite Kendrick's insistence, the airport staff refused to listen. "I don't get it, what's the issue?" Kendrick asked, frustration now creeping into his voice. "We have policies against unauthorized individuals loitering in restricted areas," Officer Reynolds said, gripping Kendrick's arm. "Loitering? I'm not loitering, I have a ticket," Kendrick said, his patience wearing thin. Another staff member, a middle-aged woman with a sharp gaze, eyed him up and down. "Sir, please don't cause a scene." "A scene?" Kendrick thought. "I'm the one getting harassed here." Just then, a few passengers nearby started whispering, some pulling out their phones to record. A younger woman, a college student who had recognized him, spoke up. "Wait, hold on. Do y'all even know who this is?" she asked, stepping closer. "We don't care who he is," the officer snapped. "He doesn't have a valid reason to be here." That's Kendrick Lamar." The staff laughed. "Yeah, right? Y'all ever heard of Pulitzer Prize winner Kendrick Lamar?" she pressed, clearly annoyed by the situation. The officers exchanged glances, still unmoved. Before Kendrick could respond, the decision had already been made. 2 guards escorted him out of the terminal, despite a small group of people now recognizing him and murmuring amongst themselves. As Kendrick was pushed toward the exit, he sighed, shaking his head. He had dealt with discrimination before, but something about this moment stung differently. No one had even bothered to check his identity properly. No one had even thought to listen, and soon they would deeply regret it. As Kendrick Lamar stepped outside the airport doors, shaking his head in disbelief, the whispers inside the terminal turned into a frenzy. The college student who had recognized him wasn't about to let this go unnoticed. She pulled out her phone and immediately started recording. "Y'all just kicked out Kendrick Lamar from the airport because you thought he was loitering? Y'all serious?" she said, walking toward the counter of the airline. The video captured the faces of the TSA officers and the airline staff as they laughed off the situation. "If he's really Kendrick Lamar, why is he flying commercial?" one of them said. The student smirked at the camera. "Oh, y'all messed up bad." Within minutes, she had uploaded the video to Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram with the caption, "LAX just kicked out Kendrick Lamar thinking he was a random nobody." This is why we say racial profiling is real. You'll better pray he don't drop a diss track about y'all. Hashtag Kendrick Lamar, hashtag LA's disaster. It didn't take long for the internet to explode. By the time Kendrick had stepped into his car, his driver confused as to why he wasn't on his flight. The notifications on social media were skyrocketing. Within an hour, the video had already racked up over 1 million views on TikTok. Twitter was on fire. At Rap News Daily, no way LAX just kicked out Kendrick Lamar. Y'all profiling a whole Pulitzer Prize-winning artist? The same dude who wrote, alright? Nah, this is crazy. At Black Culture Hub, this just proves the point that it don't matter how rich or famous you are. Some folks will still treat you like you don't belong. At Hiffo Punfiltered, imagine flexing airport security authority so hard you just kicked out Kendrick freaking Lamar. LAX, you're gonna need a major apology real quick. Meanwhile, at LAX, the staff had no idea what was happening. Officer Reynolds and his team had brushed off the situation as if nothing happened. He didn't have proper ID, one of them said casually. Just another troublemaker trying to get into first class without permission. But as their phones started buzzing, reality began to set in. One of the airline managers, scrolling through Twitter, suddenly turned pale. Guys? She stammered. What? Officer Reynolds asked, sipping his coffee. She turned her phone around. We just kicked out Kendrick Lamar. And it's all over the internet. His face dropped. The weight of the situation smashed into them like a freight train. They hadn't just removed any random passenger. They had publicly humiliated one of the most influential artists in the world. And the consequences were about to be brutal. Inside LAX, the atmosphere shifted from arrogance to absolute panic. The airline manager immediately called a crisis meeting. The video had now reached millions of views, and news outlets were picking up the story. CNN, TMZ, Complex, and even BBC had headlines like, LAX airport staff kicks out Kendrick Lamar. Internet erupts in outrage. Pulitzer Prize-winning rapper mistaken for a loiterer, racial profiling at LAX? Kendrick Lamar denied flight despite holding first-class ticket, staff under fire. The PR team scrambled to draft a statement, but the backlash was already out of control. Meanwhile, Officer Reynolds and his team were starting to realize the gravity of their actions. Wait, so you're telling me that was actually Kendrick Lamar? One of the security guards muttered, rubbing his temples. Reynolds swallowed hard. Shit. They had manhandled one of the most powerful voices in hip-hop, someone who had spoken about racial injustice, someone who had an entire fan base that would defend him at all costs. One of the airline executives stormed into the security office. You guys just messed with a global icon, he barked. Do you have any idea how much trouble this is causing us? We're getting calls from everywhere. Even corporate is losing their minds. Reynolds felt sick. He had dismissed Kendrick like he was some nobody, ignored the warnings of the passengers, and now it was all coming back to bite him. While the airport scrambled, Kendrick Lamar himself had remained silent. No tweets, no interviews, no statements. But the silence, that made it even worse. Because the world was waiting. Finally, the moment arrived. Late that evening, Kendrick posted a single message on Twitter. I was just trying to fly. That was all he said. Yet it was enough to ignite a firestorm. The replies flooded in. At DrakeFans789. Bro, they really tried to humble Kendrick Lamar like he ain't him? At TD4Life. They racially profiled a man who wrote institutionalized and the blacker the berry. Y'all proving his point in real time. At Hip Hop Culture, Kendrick ain't even mad. But we are. The backlash intensified. Fans started calling for boycotts of the airline, demanding apologies from LAX, and even urging celebrities to speak up. Within hours, major figures in music and entertainment jumped into the conversation. LeBron James tweeted, "We still dealing with this in 2025? Unbelievable. Kendrick a whole legend out here and gets treated like this? Nah, do better." Snoop Dogg posted on Instagram, "LAX really out here trippin'. Y'all forgot who K. is?" Even J. Cole chimed in, "Respect is free. Do better, man." The pressure on LAX and the airline was at an all-time high. By the next morning, LAX's official account posted an apology statement. "We deeply regret the incident involving Mr. Kendrick Lamar. This was a misunderstanding, and we are reviewing our internal policies to ensure such mistakes do not happen again." The airline also released a statement, saying, "We sincerely apologize to Mr. Lamar for the unfortunate experience he had at our terminal. Our team is working directly with him to make amends." But nobody was buying it. The damage was done. Fans flooded the comments. At Rap Culture, "Nah, y'all only sorry 'cause y'all got caught." At We Love K. "This ain't an apology. This is PR cleanup." Meanwhile, the TSA officers involved, including Reynolds, were put on administrative leave. Corporate was in full-blown panic mode. But the worst part? They still hadn't heard from Kendrick himself. Because Kendrick had one more move left to play. The world waited. The airport had apologized. The airline had issued a statement. Even the TSA officers had been placed on leave. But Kendrick? He had remained silent since his single tweet. That was until 2 days later when he made his move. At exactly 12 p.m., Kendrick posted a new video on Instagram and Twitter. It was just black and white footage of him sitting in a car, parked outside LAX. The camera zoomed in on his face, his expression calm but unreadable. Then he spoke. "A black man can win a Pulitzer. He can have Grammys. He can have billions of streams. But to some folks, he still ain't supposed to be here." His voice was steady, but his words hit like a bullet. The video cut to security footage. Someone had leaked it, showing him being pushed out of the terminal. Then the screen faded to black. At the end of the clip, only 5 words appeared on the screen. "We gon' be alright." That was it. No long statements. No press conferences. Just one of the most powerful artists in the world, reminding everyone exactly why this moment mattered. The video broke the internet. Within an hour, it had been viewed over 10 million times. Celebrities reposted it. News outlets scrambled to cover it. And the response? Pure, unapologetic outrage. At HuffPost, Kendrick Lamar responds to racial profiling incident with a powerful video. At the Shade Room, LAX might have just made the biggest mistake in airport history. At the New York Times, Kendrick Lamar addresses his unjust removal from LAX. "We gon' be alright." The airport, the airline, they weren't just facing bad PR anymore. They were now the center of a global conversation about race, power, and privilege. Inside LAX, heads were rolling. Corporate executives had emergency meetings about the PR disaster. Investors pulled out. Stock prices of the airline dropped. And then came the lawsuits. Civil rights groups filed complaints against the airline and the TSA officers involved, citing racial discrimination. Lawyers reached out to Kendrick's team, hoping to take legal action against LAX for wrongful removal. And the officers? Reynolds and his team were officially fired. The airline CEO was forced to hold a press conference, stammering through a formal apology. "We deeply regret this incident. We are implementing new training policies immediately to ensure this never happens again." But it was too late. The damage had been done. A few weeks later, Kendrick was spotted boarding a private jet, this time greeted with respect and admiration. He had never responded to the airline's desperate attempts to reach him, because at the end of the day, he didn't need to. LAX would forever be remembered as the airport that kicked out Kendrick Lamar. And for Kendrick, this was just another moment in a long history of proving the world wrong. Because no matter how many times they tried to push him out, he would always rise above it. And in the words he had written years ago, "We gon' be alright."